missionary in England, Millen Atwood, said that when the handcart plan was announced, it ran like fire in dry stubble, and the hearts of the poor saints leapt with joy and gladness. Many had prayed and fasted day after day and night after night, that they might have the privilege of uniting with their brethren and sisters in the mountains. Most of the handcart saints experienced hardship, but avoided major adverse events. But two handcart companies, the Willie Company and the Martin Company, experienced starvation, exposure to freezing weather, and many deaths. Most of these travelers sailed from Liverpool, England in May of 1856 aboard two ships. They arrived at the handcart outfitting site in Iowa City in June and July. Despite warnings, both companies departed for the Salt Lake Valley too late in the season. President Brigham Young first became aware of the perilous situation of these companies on October 4th, 1856. The next day, he stood before the saints in Salt Lake City and said, quote, "Many of our brethren and sisters are on the plains with handcarts, and they must be brought here. We must send assistance to them before the winter sets in." He asked the bishops to provide 60 mule teams, 12 or more wagons, and 12 tons of flour, and proclaimed, "Go and bring in those people now on the plains." The combined number of pioneers in the Willie and Martin handcart companies was approximately 1,100. Some 200 of these precious saints died along the trail. Without the timely rescue, many more would have perished. The winter storms began nearly 2 weeks after the first rescuers left Salt Lake City. The accounts of members of the Willie and Martin companies describe devastating challenges after the storms began. These accounts also depict the great joy when the rescuers arrived. Describing the arrival scene, Mary Huron said, "Tears streamed down the cheeks of the men, and children danced for joy. As soon as the people could control their feelings, they all knelt in the snow and gave thanks to God." 2 days later, the Willie Company had to travel the most difficult part of the trail, going over Rocky Ridge. In a freezing storm, the last of them didn't reach camp until 5 the next morning. 13 people died and were buried in a common grave. On November 7th, the Willie Company was nearing the Salt Lake Valley, but that morning, there were still 3 deaths. Two days later, the Willie Company finally reached Salt Lake, where they had a marvelous greeting and were welcomed into the homes of the saints. The same day, the Martin Company was still 325 miles back on the trail, continuing to suffer from cold and inadequate food. A few days earlier, they had crossed the Sweetwater River to reach what is now called Martin's Cove, where they hoped to find protection from the elements. One of the pioneers said it was the worst river crossing of the expedition. Some of the rescuers, like my great-grandfather, David Patton Kimball, who was just 17 years old, along with his young friends, George W. Grant, Alan Huntington, Stephen Taylor, and Ira Nebaker, spent hours in the frigid water, helping heroically the company make the Sweetwater crossing. John and Mariah Linford and their 3 sons were members of the Willie Company. John died hours before the first rescuers arrived. He had told Mariah that he was glad they had made the journey. "I shall not live to reach Salt Lake," he said, "but you and the boys will, and I do not regret all we have gone through if our boys can grow up and raise their families in Zion.